Okay. Hey everybody, thanks for coming out. Nice to see you all. Some people, seeing a friend that I haven't seen in ages. And so thanks for coming to meet our new town manager, Yoshi Manali. And I'll let you just start by saying a few things about yourself and then everybody else can chime in.
Well, I'll keep it brief, but I'm just very feel honored that the select board and Peter felt that was the right choice for the town, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know everybody and really being able to dive into some of the issues that are going on here and really try to figure out like how I can, in my own way, help you guys and really work on some of the problems that have been occurring here and find good solutions for them. And that's really what I'm here for, and I'm coming from the big city, right, New York. I lived there for many years. I worked in Trenton before here, which is a sort of a very urban municipality. And coming up here was really drew me was because the outdoors, the people. When I came down here for the interviews, I really was, every person I met was so kind and interested and really had this sort of optimism about Brattleboro. That I felt that if I was here, even if we have differences, there's a respect that was involved in it. That's something that I haven't seen a lot of in a lot of places where things to get very personal, right? Especially when it comes to direction. Here, there's always that sense of like, okay, we're different, we have different opinions, but we're always going to respect the person. And maybe that's a Vermonter to people, I don't know. But it's certainly how it is in Brattleboro, and that's what I really want. I'm excited to be a part of. So I'll really leave it up to mostly just taking questions from people. A lot of things that I've done, and my resume is just up there already. So if you have questions about that, or if you have questions about what I've done in the past, or any questions about what I've learned here, or just even simple personal questions, I'm pretty much an open book. And because I've been in public service for such a long time, I've been used to being in sort of like a public eye. So again, literally anything you guys want to ask, I can take a crack at answering it. Sometimes I may not know the answer, and I'll give you an honest opinion that I don't know. So, sure. It's up to you. Yeah.
My name is Mary, and I'm on the Finance Committee. So we'll
meeting
be
next week.
meeting
Yeah.
next week. You know how difficult it is to find housing here in Brattleboro. How was that experience for you?
I'm currently staying in the Airbnb, but I did find that it is difficult to find something, and I'm finding that it's going to be difficult for me. I can't imagine what it would be like for so many other people who are trying to come here and work here. I spoke to, when I first came here a couple months ago for my interview, I did speak to a lot of the local business people to ask them, like, what are the issues? And they said, business is good, we're doing well, but we don't have any people. We have nowhere to work. And I know that there's a housing study coming out soon, and I think that is going to show that there is a real shortage of people and housing here. And I think that's something that we really need to look at, what we can do to look and find more workforce housing, which I know some people are sort of familiar with it. It's sort of like federal subsidies that for 75% of like the county average. I think that's what the formula is. And there's ways for us to be able to get those kind of like subsidies to help us bring people who have good jobs, others who are not like the high-paying jobs, more like the municipal workers, nurses, teachers, and those types, and give them an opportunity to stay in town and live and work and try to create a more diverse people here, not just having market rates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And my name is Peter Sears, and I wondered if you've had, it's really days since you've been here, but I wonder if you have had a chance to have any substantive conversations with the police chief, the public works, things like that. And I also would, if I may, make a sort of wish. My background is in journalism, and mostly in New York. I don't think there's been a tradition here of a regular press and town conversation, and it's not unusual, particularly particularly in England. There is a sort of scheduled Friday meeting with the local press, and we have, proudly, we do have an excellent local press here, as you know, the Commons, the Reformer, and the PPR, and the cable station. So I wondered what your thoughts might be on that, and whether that's something you might like to encourage would just be more communication, and nothing wrong with the town feeding the press stories, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's something that I want to look at, is enhancing our communication. We'll consider different options on how we can do that, but absolutely, trying more transparency is even better. Having more conversations, being able to put more of that, what exactly we're doing, what the select board's doing, right? I find that the select board tends to have to promote and tell them, hey, this is what we're doing, but no, the town should be able to do that for the select board, help them be able to sort of spread this, hey, this is what we're voting on, what we're doing. And there's a lot of different mediums to do this now. When I was in school, I think it was the CMO or the Chief Marketing Officer for one of those big conglomerates that does, I'm trying to remember what they're called. Anyways, one of those big conglomerates was talking about back in the 80s and 90s when they did a media buy, they were able to get to about 90% of the population in one way or form through television and radio and print. And now that same media buy, the same amount of money, gets maybe 30, 40%. And I said that is the big problem, right? Is how do you get to people? Because there are 1,000 different ways for people to get their news. And so I think it is the responsibility of the town to be able to get as much information to you in multiple different forms that's comfortable with each of the citizens. And that's from social media to telephone to, print and others. There's other ways, right? Everybody gets it differently. Everybody gets their news differently. So absolutely, it's for us to look at how we can do that better. And as for, you're talking about the weekly, and maybe the weekly, maybe a month, maybe too much, but maybe a monthly thing. So, so we'll consider that.
Just easier.
So I don't know what I would say every week. I was like, I don't know, we shoveled snow this week, and
a more relaxed, open door
sure,
sort of conversation.
Yeah,
and, if you think there's something important going on, a call to the elders, and they feel they can come to you, maybe on background, doesn't always have to be an official statement.
Of course.
I think. As I said, our papers are excellent, but I still think there's room for more flow.
Absolutely.
And meetings with other town department chiefs yet?
Yes, I've had a chance to meet with some of them. It's been good. We've had a good conversation. Police director and I come from a similar area. She was in New Jersey and in New York, and I know actually a lot of the same people as her. And I've worked for some of the people that work with her. And so we have a very similar sense of how to help the police department make the changes that are necessary to become more in tune with today, and also what the people of Brattleboro want. And also both of us coming from very urban districts, we are very aware of those issues. When I was in Trenton, I experienced it firsthand. On my police force, we had 400 police officers, and the issues that they dealt with the past couple of years were very difficult. So absolutely. Thanks.
I'm Paul Love, and what brought you to beautiful Vermont? What brought you here? Grew up in California and moved here almost 30 years ago. But what brought you here? It's quite a change from Trenton or elsewhere in New Jersey or New York City.
I think that's a question a lot of my friends have also asked me. I think COVID changed the way we thought about life. Right, and I found myself really looking at quality of life as what's most important for me at this point in my life. And when I needed somewhere to go, I came to Vermont. COVID was very, very difficult for me in Trenton, and 7 days a week, we had a meeting in the morning, in the afternoon, and a very poor population, as well as about 40% about 20% of my population was also undocumented. So it was a challenge, right? And the difficulties of working within that environment, and our crime rate had just jumped. To get away, I came to Vermont. Right? Those long weekends, I would drive the 5-6 hours, or about 5 hours to go, actually mostly west. I went over to the Manchester area, to the Green Mountains, and I would go there just to get away. And I always felt like it was home. And it's weird to say this, but I'm not from Vermont, but it always felt where I belonged. And so even when I was 18, when I was looking for colleges, I wanted to go to the University of Vermont, but then my father said he's not going to pay that much money for a public school. and which I didn't realize that its cost for outside of Vermonters is the same as what being a private school. And I love skiing, I love hiking, and I just think it's beautiful up here. And like I said, it's the people. Like, I was sort of taken back by how kind people are. And even though there's difficulties and always there's different opinions and everything else, but people are just, they're more, it's not personal. And I feel like that's, of course things get personal, but I also felt that really like welcoming environment. And that's why I decided to come.
Thank you.
And I'll be honest, the challenges here, they're very similar to the challenges in big cities, just at a smaller scale. Any other questions? That's it.
You mentioned the kindness of Vermonters. I have to warn you, that sometimes when you're trying to make a left turn, the traffic flow may come to a halt while the other person who has the right of way is indicating that you should you can go first.
Which, by the way, I am adjusting to that niceness in driving, where I'm trying to pull out, and on a highway, people stop to let you come in. I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they letting me in? I'm like, oh, I'm trying to like fight my way in. They're like, no. This is something I'm adjusting to, is, courteousness.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions, or literally anything you guys want to ask questions about? I'm willing to answer any questions.
So I'll ask another one. The first question was about housing. Besides looking for grants and this sort of thing to make things more affordable, are there other things that the town can do to open up housing? Either changing zoning or regulations or that sort of thing?
Well, that's what we're going to look at. I talked to our planning department. We have a number of ideas, because I think one of the big things we're going to be looking at is the infrastructure bill, and how Brattleboro could be able to make sure that we have a project that's going to match what the infrastructure bill is going to have, and that's going to take us about a year or two probably to get to that point, because I don't think we have any shovel-ready projects, and infrastructure bill is going to be asking for at least $3 to $4 million projects, right? So we're going to be looking at those and how that can ultimately enhance possibly even other areas of the town, be able to get some sort of development for housing. We're also going to look at senior housing. I think that's really important. It's something that I've always prided myself when I was in Bloomfield, New Jersey. I took an old parking lot, that was a municipal parking lot, and I put senior housing on there because they don't need a lot of driving, right? But it was close to the downtown, because I think that's what I found in the past. They tend to stick to senior housing. This is not assisted living, but senior housing in the outskirts of towns. And they don't put them in places where seniors want to be. And I think that this town has really thrived on the senior population. So that as we're building a workforce and younger populations, you need to have that mix. And then we cultivate that just both the young and the old, and having market rate and some sort of assisted living or assisted living.
And I think that's important, having a market rate where you can do things that will make it where private developers and contractors can build houses besides what you need for seniors and
exactly
for subsidized this sort of thing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when you talk about workforce housing, I mean that's usually a percentage of a project. So the government will provide some subsidies for maybe 30-40% of the project, and that will offset the cost for the entire project, because that's how the developer will then ultimately be able to build something. So 50-60% will be market rate, and the rest will be the government will help subsidize, and that's a way that they, again, the developer, it's a creative way of being able to build projects. Because again, developers, unfortunately, they have to make money. So, and how we can enhance them and provide them the opportunity to be successful.
So there will be a significant infrastructure monies coming our way.
Yes.
How much discretion and latitude do you have in how it can be applied? And what are your uppermost thoughts in where, I don't know about bulk, but where the most urgent spending with this new money can go?
And that's something that we're going to discuss with all the departments. I've really talked to all of our department heads, and it's beyond just their departments, and asking them for ideas, because they know Brattleboro, they know what's going on here, and what it's going to, we need to apply for projects, right? That's, a lot of the infrastructure is built around money that's there, that's for a project that is already in works. We don't have something like that, we don't have things of that size, but there are things of that size here that we just haven't planned and designed yet. Remember, the infrastructure bill may be now, but to spend $1 trillion is not easy. It's going to be really, really hard for most municipalities to even get that money, because there's not going to be enough contractors, because there just aren't, right? We all know about the supply chain issues, there's going to be construction material. So I am fully confident in about a year or two, there'll be plenty of money for Brattleboro to be able to apply for. Especially if we have such a great congressional delegation, right? That they're going to be able to put it in place where Brattleboro will be able to at least, whatever projects that we give, we do a couple, and hopefully one of them that will have significant impact will be able to get funded. So that's the goal.
Is the pass through the state? I mean, when you've got
Every state I think does it differently.
when
Yes.
you've got a concept and
Yeah.
a project and you're
Sure.
ready to apply for funding, where do you send the letter?
So traditionally, again, I'm not sure how the infrastructure is going to be, but I've just known how they've done it in the past through DOT. It goes through the state.
Yeah.
And then usually the federal delegation designates the state, and then that project is for this highway project, or for
Yeah.
this, rehab project, or I'm assuming a lot of things around here are for water sewer issues, right? Those are significant dollars that need to go to that, and they'll designate it's like this for X amount of Z,
Yeah.
and it'll be a federal designation, and it'll go to us. Yes. But the federal delegation tends to
Yeah.
get it for us. Yeah. Unless there are exemptions to that, but Brattleboro is not a urban district, like a New York City goes directly, same thing with someone, like a Trenton, we went directly to the feds because we had that designation, but obviously Brattleboro's not big enough.
Representative, there's going to be a two-part question that I have to slide into another meeting again today. So, healthcare spending and education, as we know, is another major issue everywhere around town and in the nation. So with that spending and all that money that's coming from the infrastructure bill, how are you going to look at delegating those funds and allocating it to the proper places and channels that mainly needed, especially with senior, with other healthcare issues that are going on in our towns and with doctors and with spending with Medicare and Medicaid, and also with, we have great resource places like here at the library, which has been great for my daughter. Also, that's going on with the schools now, getting them back up to speed at some point and just seeing how we're going to do with that, with the spending of that money comes in.
So I think you're talking about the initial pot of money from COVID, right? That's the $3.5 million I think that Brattleboro said to get. So I'm not familiar enough about what the plans have been and how they've been sort of preparing for it. So I unfortunately can't give you an answer until I dive into exactly what that's being done. But I know that's what the select board and Peter, they've been working on that or they have been preparing for that. So as of right now, I have not had that conversation with Peter yet about where that money or how that's going to be, and it may not have been designated yet. So I believe the select board was still waiting on for direction from the feds.
Yeah.
But that's, again, don't quote me on that because I think that's where the current situation is.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for now. We're looking for that, final.
And once that comes, then I'll be able to give you more of an answer on how that's sort of being delegated. I did for Trenton before I left. I actually laid out where the money should be going and how it should be delegated. But because it was a heavy urban district, they had a lot more discretion on how to spend the money. And we were really looking on broadband for all, which is I think a big issue, and I think that's something that's going to happen here too. I think everyone's getting that money for most municipalities. So, but I don't know how that's coming here. If it goes through the state. So again, I think the way your dealing rules and a couple other issues, it's a very different relationship when it comes to federal money because you're not getting it directly. It goes through the state first. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the last question is that resettlement for people coming in. Are you going to be there at the time that they come in?
What's that?
The people that are coming in from.
I don't know when are they coming.
I've been hearing different dates and times, but hasn't been solidified yet. But this point yet, that's going to be also something as part of your coming to town meeting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned before, I used to be a young member of the IRC, and I'm still very much involved with the IRC. If people are familiar with it, it's the International Rescue Committee. They are the largest resettlement group. They're based out of New York, but they started in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And I worked with them on many, many issues. And I would love to work with them in the future, but not just on Afghan refugees, which I know is through the Ethiopian Association, but seeing if they can I was thinking like it would be great to have a Burmese restaurant there. They have a lot of Burmese refugees, so.
Variety is the spice of life, that's a good thing. But I appreciate that, I'm looking forward to seeing you once things get started and working alongside with you. Again, welcome to the family,
Thank you.
welcome to the town, and
Thank you.
we'll be looking forward to seeing you.
Perfect,
again.
great, thanks.
All right, actually, that's a good follow-up. My name is Thomas Huddleston, so I'm with ECDC's new Multicultural Community Center here. And we will have 100 Afghan individuals arriving by the end of February, mostly here in the Brattleboro area with the support of volunteers and co-sponsor groups. And there's been so many organizations here that want to support. Do you have any ideas of things that the town could do to make those people feel more welcome?
Again, I'm not really sure what all the things that they're doing already or what they're preparing for. I imagine the town has been working on this issue. I mean, you probably know better than I do if they have, but I imagine they have. But of course, the town will absolutely be there to help in any way we can. Yeah.
This may seem like a small thing, but the last I was informed, our municipal parking center in downtown, there's a lack of security cameras. That they haven't been, the last time they were addressed was 20 years ago. About half of them were. And we've recently had an influx of auto crime in the town, spreading to auto repair shops themselves being stripped of their catalytic converters. So that's a small issue, but it's to bring light to the maintenance of existing services that may need attention before brand new projects.
Well, I got a chance to meet with some of the parking folks, and they mentioned that. I think they showed me how some of those cameras are, that they go off and on because of some of the water damage that are there. And that is something that we're going to address right away, hopefully, be able to fix those cameras. Especially in that because those are sort of, it gets a little dark in there. And it's important to have some cameras, especially in the parking, to make sure that people feel safe. So,
It's a small point, but I think that if we have that thing that was easy to come to my attention, there could be a great multitude of existing structures that need maintenance before we need new projects.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we're going to be looking at. I've talked to our maintenance folks as well, and asking them again once we start looking at all these issues, where we need to, because infrastructure at the end of the day is incredibly important, because if you ignore it, eventually becomes a problem. And for instance, the parking deck is getting a little older, and it does have some water damage and has some rusting issues. And if we ignore it and we don't put the investment in, eventually, and I watch what this happen in Trenton, it gets condemned. And then you lose the parking deck altogether, and the only option is to tear down the whole thing, and that costs millions of dollars to tear down and rebuild. So it's better to maintain something and keep something as long as you can, because that's what we need to do. So you're absolutely right, is being able to maintain our existing infrastructure is important.
Thank you. I hope for the success of that as well as new projects. Who's next?
Is there any other questions? Are we good? All right, well, I can speak to people individually if you would like, and I'm here for the next month, so I'm also, open to anybody inviting me to anything. Anybody who wants me over for a coffee or dinner, I'm free. So, other than playing on the men's basketball league, that's about the only thing right now that I got on my schedule. And skiing, I got my Epic Pass, so I'm very excited about headed up to, I think, opening weekend. So, but yeah, absolutely, please, I'm available. You know where my office is, and hopefully, I do have cards, so I shouldn't say I shouldn't have my own cards yet, but you know where to find me, yeah.
Are you a cyclist?
I am not. I'm more of a hiker, though I'm just amazed by this library that they offer up everything, but I've heard that they also rent out snowshoes, so I'm excited about that. And also I started wearing these because I realized I was wearing dress shoes and they just got full of mud and I was slipping, and I'm like, okay, that's clearly not what you wear in Brattleboro, so I guess I'll have to send all those for never to wear again. So.
I did notice you have decent shoes on.
I learned my lesson when I went with one of the police officers today, and he was sort of driving me around when I met with the police, and they were like, oh, I got out, and I'm like, this is all mud. I'm like, I am not gonna, this is terrible, so my shoes were covered. okay, this is what I need to wear from now on. And I'm noticing that that's what everybody wears, so. Any other questions or anybody comments or anything? It was very nice meeting everybody, and again, I hope to get to know each other of you individually, and I'm excited for letting us know and how we can obviously help the Ethiopian Association in this resettlement. So, thank you.
Great, thank you.